So this webinar is about how to learn and take from notes in a way that works in harmony with your brain. We've learned a great deal recently about how the brain works, how it processes information, and how learning operates. And so this method of taking notes is designed to maximize the efficiency of your note-taking in terms of what kind of learning you do, how easy that learning is, and how long it lasts. And so there are 4 sections to this note-taking method. I'm going to walk you through all 4, and they're going to be in inverse order of importance, starting with the least and ending with the most important. And what you see at the top of the page is basically filing information. A lot of people treat this as garbage information, so they don't bother to put it in. But that turns out to be a mistake. This information is important in a number of ways. So the date, of course, is just filing information, which is a way of keeping things in order, and your brain likes order. That helps it remember things. But more important than that is the course event and the topic. And the reason why these are important is because they prepare you for what's about to happen. So if when you sit down to take notes, the first thing that you do is say, okay, what is the class I'm in, or what is the event that I'm in, and what are we going to be doing today? And you write that down. That primes your brain by moving what you already know about this course or event or whatever it is that you're attending, and the topic that you're about to discuss, and brings that into working memory. And that makes it easier for your brain to access those things and easier for it to make connections to those things. And since connection is the biological basis of learning in the first place, it makes it easier and faster for you to learn new material. So this information at the top of the page is important for priming. Now the second piece here is you'll see on the right-hand side of the page is the notes section. And there you write your notes, just as you would write any kind of notes. And to a large extent, it doesn't matter what you put there. One of the reasons I don't pay attention to this is the data shows that this is the least important section of the page in terms of what you actually write down. In fact, putting content there is only slightly better from a cognitive point of view than simply doodling. So take notes however you take notes. What's more important is what's on the left-hand side of the page. And on the left-hand side of the page, you're going to put the soundtrack that goes on in your mind as you are listening to the lecture or participating in the activities that are the substance of that class or that event. Those things can happen in a number of ways. In one sense, they can simply be your reactions. Like if somebody says something and you think, oh, that's dumb, or I object, or I have a question about that, you would put those reactions on that left-hand side. And of course, if you have a question, whatever, you would put that question down. If you object, you would put object, why you object, that kind of thing. So it could be cognitive, but it doesn't have to be. In other words, it could also be, this connects to something else I remember. That would be good. That's actually some of the best kind of information. But it could also be, there was a loud noise that happened outside of class at this particular moment. Or a particularly attractive person of the opposite gender walked by at this moment. Or it could be, I'm really hungry at this particular point in time. It turns out that those emotionally loaded reactions that you have are much better indices of the information on the right-hand side of the page than the information themselves. So you want to look very carefully at what's happening in your internal soundtrack and try to keep track of that, write it down in the left-hand column. And the left-hand column, it's important that it is the left-hand column, because in our culture we read from left to right and from top down. So your brain prioritizes what happens left and upmost on the page. It looks there for the most important information because it expects it to be there. So that gives it a certain sense of cognitive priority. The other way in which this is important is certainly at the beginning what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot more material on the right-hand side of the page and less material on the left-hand side of the page, because you have more volume of actual material and less volume of reactions to it. What that means is you have a lot more white space around your reactions and your comments than you do around your notes. That again makes this information more salient to your brain, makes it easier for it to uptake that information and to connect things to it, which is the essence of learning. So having that soundtrack recorded there makes it easier for you to learn from that information. And then we get to the most important part of the page. At the bottom of the second page, you find a bar across the page and it says summary. And there's a couple of inches of space there. And I haven't given you very much space for a very specific reason. First of all, I want you to actually write the summary. And so if I give you just a little space and a little time, it's much more likely that you'll do it. And the general rule of thumb that I give to my students is 3 to 5 sentences in 3 to 5 minutes. So this is not supposed to be, you are not writing a dissertation here. You are not attempting to recapitulate everything that happened during the lecture. You're asked to make a very quick summary. What are the 3 to 5 most important things that happened today that you need to remember for the future? Write those down in that summary page. And this gives you benefits on all kinds of levels, in the sense that, first of all, it forces you to process the information, it forces you to sort the information, it forces you to recall the information. All of those things are associated with increased retention and increased learning. Also, it's important what the sequence of how this happens is. So it happens at the end of about 2 pages. So generally about 45 minutes worth of material is about the right amount, so maybe you could stretch it to an hour. If you're doing an hour and a half class, you want to do this maybe twice. The second thing is you want to do it as close to the end of the session as possible. Now, obviously, if you have classes back to back, that's not going to be possible. But what is critical is that you do it before you sleep. And the reason is because for human beings, sleep is one of its most important functions is as an eraser. So during your time awake, your brain records information about everything that happened to you during the day. But very, very little of that is important. So for example, right now, as you're sitting there listening to me talk, your brain is aware, for example, of how warm the air is, the weight of your body sitting in your chair, the weight of the clothes upon you, whether there's a refrigerator humming in the background. All of this information is being recorded, and yet none of it is important. So tonight, all that information is going to be erased. So you want to prevent this information that you've so painstakingly recorded today from being erased along with the rest of it. So writing the summary before you sleep is a way of sort of putting it up on the blackboard and saying, do not erase. So most important is that you do this before you sleep. The last thing is you need to review your summary somewhere within a 24-hour window. So you take the class today, sometime before you hit 24 hours, after you sleep, you need to review your information. And what I mean by that is you need to review your summary. It should only take you about 90 seconds because it's 3 to 5 sentences, right? So you review, and only in the circumstance that you find something there that you don't recognize or don't understand will you look at anything else. And if you look at anything else, you look at the left-hand column. Because again, that's the index that reminds you of the content. You don't actually need to look at the content. You'll recall it better if you look at the left-hand column than the right. Finally, it's only in the instance that you find something on the left-hand column that you don't understand that you would ever go back and look at the actual notes. And one of the promises that I make to my students at the very beginning of class is that if they follow this method of taking notes, it will take them a few hours at the beginning of the semester to get familiar with it, and it'll cost them a little time. It'll pay back 10 to 15-fold at the end of the term, because when they review, they're just going to review summaries. And again, only if you see something that you don't understand do you go to the left-hand column. And again, only if you see something there you don't understand will you go to the right-hand column. So we know that people learn things best through regularly spaced intervals of repetition. So studying these notes maybe once a week, just the summaries, and again, only escalating up the page if you find something that you don't understand. So if you follow this method of taking notes, you will increase your retention, you will increase your learning, and you will save yourself a ton of time.